Good evening, YouTube! So today, I'm going to do a little PowerPoint, like back when I was in high school, about the Fundamental Character Design Fundamentals. Department of Redundancy Department. I have here a slideshow that I have made in advance to explain all of these things, and with this knowledge, we are going to make a brand new VTuber. This VTuber will be available for purchase after it's all done. I asked Twitter on yesterday, probably a few days ago, by the time this video goes out, what kind of characters they want to see me create, and the winner was the Dark Magical Girl. So we are going to be creating a Dark Magical Girl with these design fundamentals, and I hope that after watching this video, you will also have a great concept of how to make a fantastic VTuber that gets exactly what you want to convey right. So, the 5 character design fundamentals that we are going to be going over today is clarity, palette, silhouette, symmetry, and complexity. And we're going to go them one by one, and we are going to be using Hololive's fauna as an example throughout, as an example of fantastic character design. So let's just dump into it, shall we? Next slide. Clarity. So, the idea of clarity is to convey what you are trying to get across to the audience with ease, so that they don't have to kind of look at you and be like, what is going on there? Basically, don't be a shonen protagonist unless that's literally what you're going for. If I looked at Naruto, for example, I would not see ninja. You kind of need some pre-existing understanding of Naruto and its universe in order to actually see Naruto as a ninja. We are going to be going for the opposite of that here. I mean, unless that's what you like to do, don't let me stop you. But, yeah. I'm also doing a redesign of myself. It is more of a touch-up than a full redesign, but I'm also going to be following these concepts because this model that you're seeing here that I'm wearing now was rushed. I needed something workable, so I just went as crazy as I could, quickly. So, does the character convey their concept clearly? Do people know what they're looking at when they see your character? Can the viewer infer what the character will be like at a glance? Can they have one look at your character and be like, okay, yeah, that's the hero's rival, or something like that? And does the character's design effectively convey their personality or tropes? Now, this means that you're going to want to, if you're doing a VTuber, incorporate parts of your own personality into your design. If you're doing a character design for a comic or video, and say your character just really likes lizards, maybe put them in like a lizard-themed t-shirt or something. Stuff like that. Now let's look at fauna. I don't own her, I'm just using her as an example. This is education, it's criticism, it's fair use. Please don't sue me, Hololive, I love you guys. Anyway, her concept is a Kirin, and she is basically Mother Nature, and her personality is very soft and sweet, and she's soft-spoken, very calming to listen to. She does a lot of ASMR stuff. So her character design has to convey that, and I think that they did. The horns on her head have leaves. It kind of both suggests her Kirin nature and her Mother Nature sort of vibe. Her green hair has leaves in it, and it also has flowers in it, although you can't quite see. We're gonna have a close-up of her later. Her golden apple calls back to Idun of Norse mythology. She is a life-giving figure. Specifically, if you don't know who Idun is, She grows the golden apples that the gods eat to maintain eternal life. The gods in Norse mythology and Norse religion are not immortal, inherently. They can die, and they can get old and die of old age. That does happen. But if I got into a rant about the Norse lore and everything like that, we'd be here all day, because I am a Norse pagan myself. I don't want to go into it, but yeah, that's what they were going for with that little design feature. Next, her floral motif goes through her entire clothing. I don't know what that golden design is called off the top of my head. I know it's like a French motif of some sort, but it flows through the entire design and is repeated multiple times. It suggests the closeness with nature, and it also suggests gentleness and femininity. She's barefoot, deliberately to suggest the closeness with nature. You know those people on Facebook that are just like, oh yeah, I'm renaturizing, I'm walking around in the woods barefoot. That's a bad idea, don't do that, but also, that's what that's meant to suggest. And she's got an overall flowy and feminine, sort of soft look to her. When you see her in action, her model is beautifully animated. Everything flows very well. I believe that she is a perfect example of design clarity. You get all of those parts that they're trying to convey in one big package. And her alternate outfits have also taken more consideration of who is acting as her. Because this design, if you didn't know, was actually finalized in 2017, long before she would have even auditioned for Hololive. They have designs going way back. I only found this out through finding one of the original reference sheets for her. So yeah, that's interesting. And next is the palette. The color palette is a very important part of character design. You want your colors to be harmonious. They want to stand on their own without overwhelming the rest of the palette. The gradients need to be used strategically, so don't go overboard with them. The colors need to be not unpleasant to look at, so generally I would avoid like bright yellow and bright red. People don't like to look at bright yellow, bright red, bright magenta, all those pure colors way up in the top right corner of the color wheel. Avoid them. I almost never ever use them except for tiny little accents. Are the values strong and easy to tell apart even when your character is in grayscale? You want to be able to look at character in grayscale because you also have to consider people who are colorblind are going to be looking at your character and they're going to be inferring information about it based on the colors that you use and the values in the colors. So you don't want to use all pale shades because they'll just kind of wash out right into each other. And you also don't want to use all dark shades because they'll also just blend into each other. You want a good and healthy mix of both. Are complementary and analogous colors used correctly? Complementary colors are colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel. And analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. For example, pink and green, or red and green, are complementary colors, whereas green and blue are analogous colors. They work together to create a very harmonious look. You can pretty much never go wrong by pairing complementary and analogous colors together. And as a final note, any natural hair, eye, or skin color can be paired with any other color on the color wheel without clashing. I know a lot of artists are just like, well, I can't draw black people in pastels because it just looks bad, and I'm just like, no, you're bad. Just try a different shade or tone or saturation. It may still look pastel. Different colors look different depending on what colors they're paired with. So what would be a pastel color for somebody who is pale, you may have to turn up the saturation a little bit and it will still look pastel on somebody with darker skin. You have to experiment and learn these things. There's really no excuse not to. Finally, let's go and look at Fauna again. See, as you can see, none of Fauna's colors clash. Her character designer used a lot of complementary colors, particularly the pink and the green, and the blue and the yellow. She used a more bluish green to complement the pink instead of, bright green and red. And the blue and yellow also look really good together. The blue and green are also analogous, so they're next to each other on the wheel, and they go well together in the same palette. The high saturation colors, such as on her neck bow, and on the little gems around her waist, and on the, I think it's a coif thingy that's there, they're used sparingly. They're not overly done. And you want to do that when you've got like the really bright saturated colors. You don't want to use them too much, or else they'll be overwhelming to look at. Her colors are all reused throughout the design. Nothing looks out of place. With the exception of hair and eye colors, as long as they're natural, I would suggest repeating every color in your palette at least once somewhere else on the character. It helps it feel a little more harmonious, like it wasn't just slapped on there without any thought. Somebody planned that outfit. Her skin, hair, and skirt, although they are roughly the same value, they have enough contrast that you can discern what they are, even with the image in grayscale. Nothing blends into anything else, and that is helped by the fact that the line art, where two colors of the same value meet, is darkened, allowing the viewer to tell the difference between them. Now let's examine the silhouette, and this is very straightforward, very easy. Does the character look interesting even when they're in the shadow? If you can recognize the character at a glance just from their shape, that's perfect. This is very important in game design specifically, especially in player versus player games. You want to be able to identify your enemy's healer as quickly as possible so that you can take them down. You also want your healer to be able to identify tanks and so they can be healed. It's very straightforward. Let's have a look at Fauna's. So her silhouette is beautiful. Her horns stick out, giving her a unique look. Her apple is clearly recognizable. Her sleeves give some interesting look to her, like they kind of poof in and then poof out. That adds a little bit of interest. You can discern the skirt from the waist and the arms, and from the hair. Her hair being in a slight updo allows the silhouette to not be a blob. Now you'll find a lot of characters with longer hair and skirts look kind of like just a blob. You can't really discern any details from them. In some cases, you're never going to be able to get away with this. Like, if your character is plus size, they're always going to look a little bit big, obviously, compared to slighter characters. But you can always bring out some more detail in them by adding in specific accessories and other things. Her bare feet are visible. You can recognize that this is Fauna at a glance. You have no problem. You would recognize her anywhere. So symmetry. Symmetry and asymmetry are really important in character design. When it comes to symmetry, you want to strike a good balance of this. So does the character have points of asymmetry that draw the eye? An asymmetrical character adds interest to their silhouette and their complexity. Overusing symmetry can make a character kind of boring to look at, but overusing asymmetry can make a character hard to draw. Now, this is especially important with characters that you're going to draw a lot. For example, if you have a webtoon or a webcomic, you don't want to go too crazy with your character designs. In these cases, I would say 1 or 2 asymmetrical accents is probably the best thing to do. Don't go too crazy because you are going to be drawing that character over and over and over again, you want a simple design. Save the crazy dresses for splash pages. So symmetry with Fauna. Her side swept bangs are on one side, with a braid on the other, so that's good. Her hair is actually asymmetrical at the shoulders, meaning that they are the same length, but they have different styles of flyaways. This adds some pretty good contrast there, even though it's not something that most people will notice all at once. Her one arm up, one arm down default appearance looks really good, especially with the apple on one side. It goes away once she puts her arms down, which is something that she can do, but this is also broken up by the fact that only one arm appears to have a wrist cuff, which adds just a little bit more asymmetry. She's got an anklet on one leg and a stocking on the other leg, meaning it is a little bit of symmetry. It's not something that would add to the silhouette, but it is something that can draw the eye. Now, her little side button and updo adds interest, and it also adds to the silhouette. The leaves on the horns are slightly different in their placement, allowing a little bit of more realism, because obviously leaves don't grow on branches at the same place every time. Fauna's design is very sparing on the symmetry, but it's just enough to work very well. Complexity is the next one that we're going to be going over. Complexity denotes the level of detail in the characters, particularly small details that draw people's eye. Striking a balance in complexity is important. Too little and the character looks plain. Too much and the character becomes hard to draw. See back to my symmetry slide. And the viewer doesn't know what to focus on. Small details should draw the eye to certain focal points. For example, you can see that my little headpiece here does draw the eye towards the face, and my heterochromia also draws some attention, especially because it is such a contrasting color to the rest of me. I made sure that those parts were the only bright colors that I had on my palette for a reason. And that was the choice it was. And now for Fauna. Most VTubers have highly detailed eyes that draw in the viewer. Fauna is obviously no exception, neither am I. She has small flowers in the hair, and her hair is actually a gradient, which draws some interest. The bow on her chest brings the eye towards her bosom, so you can see all of those beautiful details in the fabric. The detailing on the coif and the sleeves, they add a lot of complexity. They're a beautiful shade of gold, but it doesn't take away from any of the other colors. It actually brings out the eyes. And the detailing on the bodice gives a sense of elegance, I suppose. Those repeated flower patterns, once again. And moving down, her waist piece is very interesting to me. This is not something that I actually would have thought of myself. I'll be honest, I was kind of about Fauna's design at the start, but now looking at it in detail here, I always knew it was a very good design. It's just the shade of teal that they picked isn't to my personal taste, but I really love the overall design anyway. Her waist piece features flowers and jewels. It suggests like a very feminine beauty to her. And the repetition of motifs in the gold and on the teal fabric, the repetition of the patterns adds harmony to the design. It brings it all together as one concept. The floral pattern inside the sleeves and on the underskirt is very subtle from a distance. You can't see it from a distance, but it is very detailed close up, which is a very interesting little bonus that you can get from looking closely at the model. Her clothing is very layered, very Y2K, but nothing seems messy or uncoordinated. Again, it looks like she planned this outfit. Now, let's have a look at some more examples for the character designs. This is Farina from Genshin Impact. She is my favorite character from Genshin Impact. So here she is. As you can see, Her silhouette is very noticeable. She has all these little bits that stick out, like the ahoge, her little crown here. She's got this bow around her waist, and that tailcoat, which swoops off to the side. The rest of her is very symmetrical, but it works very well, and her silhouette is very noticeable. As well, she seems to have a lot of contrast in her color palette. It's almost all tones of blue, with the exception of gold and white as accents. But the values are very distinct. Even the most colorblind person would be able to tell this is Furina. And our final example is Y'shtola from Final Fantasy XIV. Now, she has a slightly more monochrome palette. It's all black, gray, and brown. Brown being her skin. Again, any color can match with any skin tone as long as it is a natural human color. Those are neutrals. Brown, black, they are neutral. She has white eyes and white hair. And all of the black is broken up by tiny accents of cool colored teal, purple, and blue. Now, as that is the last slide, we're just going to go back to the first one. We are going to be using these design fundamentals in order to create the best dark magical girl we can. So, keep that in mind. I will be doing some research on the dark magical girl genre. And yeah, see you next time. Look forward to it. Bye-bye.